Hey, good evening. Here it is Sunday evening, time for Old Testament studies. Thanks for joining us. We've made it to chapter 28 of 1 Samuel. Told you last week we're coming to a chapter that has a witch in it, a real witch, as real as they get, I guess. And let's see what happens here. It came to pass in those days, chapter 28, verse 1, it came to pass in those days that the Philistines gathered their armies together. You noticed all through here they're gathering armies together. The Israel and the Philistines, everybody's always fighting. Hadn't changed a bit, has it? Watch the evening news. They're gathering their armies to fight. Together for warfare, to fight with Israel. So now the Philistines are going to fight with Israel. Remember where old David's gone to get away from Saul. He's living down there in the land of the Philistines, and he's been acting like he's on their side, and he's fighting some of the common enemies of the Philistines and Israel, but he's going to get put in a bad situation here. So what happens when you get to compromising with evil is it'll suck you in deeper and deeper. So Achish, the king of the Philistines, said to David, "Know thou assuredly that thou shalt go out with me to battle, you and your men." And so David's being asked now to go out and fight against Israel. And David said to Achish, "Surely thou shalt know what thy servant can do." And Achish said to David, "Therefore will I make thee keeper of my head forever, my friend forever. You go and fight these people with me," which was David's own people. Now, Samuel was dead. We know that already in our reading, didn't we? He's died a while back. And all Israel had lamented or mourned over him. They buried him in Ramah, even in his own city. And Saul had put away those that had familiar spirits and the wizards out of the land. Now, Saul wasn't wrong to do this because it's a sin. It's a sin in the law of Moses. Read it in Deuteronomy. You know that the Bible's against these spiritists, witches, astrologers, diviners, a lot of things that are still common today. You can pick up a newspaper, I guess. The last time I looked at one, they're about gone away. But you'll find across from the funny pagers or something, these witches, these astrologers that are telling you what your love life is based on the time you were born. And it's most of it, 99.9% of it's just a bunch of bunk, people making money off of them, like Madame Cleo, who people sent a lot of money to until she had to flee the country for tax evasion. Should have seen that coming, shouldn't she? But some of them, there are something to some of them because they're possessed with a demon. And I've even seen them around Cleveland here where they'll have fortune tellers come in, pay them a bunch of money to read the lines on your hand, and they're going to tell you that. Funny if people will believe that, not believe the Bible, ain't it? That tells me there's something spiritual going on there that's coming from the dark side. So Saul had cleaned the land. He'd run them all out and had them killed and everything else. He'd put away those that had these familiar spirits, which is another word for they were possessed by demons. And he put away the wizards out of the land. And the Philistines gathered themselves together, verse 4. And they came and pitched in a place called Shunem. And Saul gathered all Israel together, and they pitched in a place called Gilboa. They're getting ready. They're assembling the battle lines. It's going to be a big battle here. And when Saul saw the host, it's hard to say, when Saul saw the host of the Philistines, he was afraid, and his heart greatly trembled. Must have had a pretty good army over there. And when Saul inquired of the Lord answered him not. He couldn't get an answer, neither by dreams or Urim or the prophets, the three ways in the Old Testament there that God was speaking to people, either through dreams or through the priest Urim and the Thummim, or the prophets would prophesy and speak the word of the Lord to him. But Saul couldn't get an answer. And this hasn't changed. This is likely what will happen to you too when you use God as a Band-Aid. Don't ask any favors of him, because if you just use the Lord as a Band-Aid, you're going to be in trouble one of these days and need an answer, and you ain't going to be able to hear from him because you've treated him wrong. Then Saul said to his servants, verse 7, "Seek me a woman that has a familiar spirit." I can't hear nothing from God. I'll go to the devil and see what he can tell me, that I may go to her and inquire of her. And his servant said to him, Behold, there is a woman that hath a familiar spirit at Endor. There's one of them fortune tellers down there. And Saul disguised himself and put on other clothes and went, and 2 men with him. And they came to the woman by night under cover of darkness in this disguise. And Saul said, I pray thee, or I beg thee, divine unto me by the familiar spirit, and bring me him up whom I'll name. I want you to bring somebody back from the dead. It's like Houdini's wife went around trying to get somebody to get Houdini to come back and talk to her. And the woman said unto him, Behold, thou knowest what Saul hath done, how he's cut off those that have familiar spirits and the wizards out of the land. Wherefore then layest thou a snare for my life to cause me to die? Are you kidding me, man? You're trying to get me killed? That's against the law. And she didn't know she was talking to Saul, the one that's behind it all. And Saul sware to her by the Lord, saying, As the Lord liveth, there will be no punishment happen to thee for this thing. Then said the woman, Well, who shall I bring up unto thee? And he said, Bring me up Samuel, bring him up from the dead. And when the woman saw Samuel, she cried with a loud voice. I don't know if she was a fake or if she was surprised that she really saw something here. But anyhow, she saw a big old demon, I think, that was pretending to be Samuel. So it says, when the woman saw Samuel, she cried with a loud voice. And the woman spake to Saul, saying, Why have you done this to me for your Saul? It sounds like the demon told her, That's Saul sitting over there. Why do you not think it's really Samuel, preacher? Well, because I don't think a witch has the power to bring up one of God's people from the dead. And the king said unto her, Be not afraid, for what do you see? Which tells me that Saul didn't see it, but she saw something or pretended to see something. And so Saul didn't see anything. He said, What'd you see? What'd you see? And the woman said unto Saul, I saw gods with a little g, spirits, demons is what she saw, ascending out of the earth. And he said unto her, What form is he of? And she said, Well, it's an old man that comes up, and he's covered with a mantle. Now, she could have just made that up. She knew Samuel was an old man when he died. And Saul perceived that it was Samuel. He saw what he believed what he wanted to believe. And he stooped with his face to the ground, and he bowed himself. He swallowed it hook, line, and sinker. And Samuel said to Saul, Why hast thou disquieted me to bring me up from the dead? And Saul answered and said, I'm sore distressed. I'm greatly afeared. For the Philistines make war against me, and God's left me. God's departed from me. And he answers me no more. You know why? It's because God's God. Saul thought he was, and he thought he could just use God. A lot of people are like that today. They don't want to be submitted to the lordship of the Lord. They just want to use the Lord like a Band-Aid or something else when they're in trouble, or get God to do something that they really want him to do. That was Saul. God's departed from me, and he answers me no more. He don't answer me by the prophets or the dreams, and I've called thee that thou mayest make known unto me what I shall do. If God won't tell me nothing, I come to you. Maybe you can tell me, Samuel. You used to speak to me for God when you was alive. Then said Samuel, or whatever she's conjured up here, Wherefore then dost thou ask of me, seeing the Lord's departed from thee, and has become your... What are you asking me if God's your enemy? And the Lord's done to him as he spake by me, for the Lord hath rent the kingdom out of your hand, and given it to your neighbor, even to David. That God's taken the kingdom away from you, and he's given it to David. Everybody knew that for years, right? That it's going to happen. And it's because you didn't obey the voice of the Lord. You can't expect God to continue to bless you when you're living in disobedience to him, Saul. You didn't obey the voice of the Lord. You didn't execute his fierce wrath upon the Amalekites, as God told you to wipe them out of the land, and he didn't. Therefore hath the Lord done this thing unto thee this day. God tried to tell Saul what to do, and Saul wouldn't do it. But Saul went around trying to tell God what to do. So God quit answering him. Moreover, verse 19, the Lord will also deliver Israel with you into the hand of the Philistines. You're going to lose that battle, and you and Israel all is going to go away as prisoners. Except for you, you're not going to be a prisoner, because tomorrow you and your sons will be with me, and I'm dead, he's saying. The Lord also shall deliver the host of Israel into the hand of the Philistines. This is going to be bad for Israel. Then Saul fell straightway all along the earth, and was sore afraid because of the words of Samuel. There is no strength in him, for he'd eat no bread all day nor all night. He's about to pass out, and he's got bad news now. You know what? Here's a lesson in this too. Your leaders can get you into a whole lot of trouble, can't they? Saul's been a bad leader, and he's led them into this mess, and they're all about to get killed. And the woman came to Saul, verse 21, the witch of Endor, and saw that he was sore troubled, and said unto him, Behold, thine handmaid hath obeyed thy voice. I did what you told. I put my life in my hands, and I've hearkened unto thy words which thou spake unto me. Now therefore I pray thee, you listen to me also, the voice of your handmaid, and let me set a morsel of bread before. Let me fix you something to eat. You're going to die. That thou mayest have strength when thou goest on thy way. But Saul, he refused, and said, I'll not eat. But his servants, together with the woman, they kept compelling him, and he finally hearkened unto their voice. So he rose from the earth, and he sat upon the bed, and the woman had a fat calf in the house. She's going to kill the fatted calf to feed Saul and his men. And she hasted and killed it, and she took some flour and kneaded it, and did bake unleavened bread. So she had meat and bread. They served a meal. And she brought it before Saul and before his servants, and they did eat. Then they rose up and went away that night. Now, what's going to happen tomorrow? Join us next Sunday to find out.